So, hi Jovi, I'm Casey from the Spike. First of all, I'd like to start out by, congratulating you on a hard-fought win, one more step forward in the playoffs. So, you want to start off with any thoughts you have about the game?
Um, these games are making me lose hair and gain too much gray hair. Got a little too close for my liking. Um, but nonetheless, we come out on top, which is great. Too many little mistakes in the beginning, and we're not starting out hot. And yeah, but we cleaned it up towards the end. So hopefully tomorrow it can be reversed.
All right, now you speak about losing the head on your hair. Now, I noticed on your map pick, Breeze, things got a bit sticky, but things like this happen. But, RRQ in the past have been known for their slow starts, and it seemed like this series as well, that was also the case. So, I'd like to know your thoughts about, how your take on this issue and also how you're dealing with it in your own way.
Yeah, I mean, not just Breeze, even Ascent. We started out 0-7, I think, something like that. I don't know. Yeah, it's just starting out slow. Sometimes it feels like we need to understand the team, or like I use I paint a picture of like we got to touch the fire to see how hot the fire is until we know how hot it is, right? And it's one of those things, but I don't know, sometimes it takes people to see how hard some teams are hitting to be able to hit back to understand.
Okay, now, uh, someone of your experience, obviously, you've been in the Americas and now you've moved all the way here. You've been on quite a few teams as coach, assistant coach, analyst, all the roles. So I just want to know your thoughts about, the main philosophical changes between the Americas and between here, what you've noticed.
Um, APAC is very mechanical heavy and aim heavy. So that's definitely a huge factor when it comes to certain things and ways of like dealing with certain players. I mean, look at like May today, for example, is an extraordinary player, and just you can't just dry swing him. You like he will completely take advantage of that. And like little minor details like that are so emphasized on APAC than it is in other regions, in my opinion. Um, yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, is just you have to focus on a lot of the micro, and sharpening that um is the most important thing, I would say, between both.
All right, now you've also been in another Pacific team, Talon. That team doesn't exist anymore, like at least the org doesn't. But from Talon to RRQ, both are, you could say, international rosters in a sense. Like everyone speaks a different language, so English is the default.
Mhm.
So in a roster like that, how do you deal with the language barrier? You have three Indonesian players, a Russian and a Vietnamese player. How did you do it back then, and also
Mhm.
how do you do it now?
Well, at least here in RRQ, they all speak English. On Talon, none of them, well, they understood English for the most part, like Primi and Jit, Killua as well understood a little bit. Cruz spoke it fluently. But Thai is their main language, so for them it was more of like having to, chat GPT, translate, right? To like understand or speak broken, slow English with them. But with these guys, I can have full conversations because they understand English fully and everything. So it's completely different and easier here than it was in on Talent.
All right, thank you very much. Now, also, RRQ coming from 2025, they had a good season. You could say they won stage one, I think, and then also second place the second time around. You coming into this team, how do you manage your expectations to follow up a season like that?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely set a bar last year that obviously anybody and everybody should want to reach, right? You want to be able to lift up a trophy and go to internationals. So I think overall, it's just not just because they did that last year, but that's also a goal of mine in general, is to be able to lift a trophy as a head coach and make it to those international, experiences and stuff. So definitely trying to, meet the goal that they had last year, but also trying to surpass it as possible because it is a personal goal.
All right, that's great. Now, I want to pick your brain a bit about this new neon nerf that has just been introduced. I think Riot will introduce it in the next patch, but obviously the nerf on the slide, and on top of that, a shotgun nerf. So I just wanted to know your
Mm.
thoughts about what you think about this whole situation.
You know, I'm happy that they are nerfing shotguns. I do think they are a little bit overpowered. The neon nerf, I mean, sure, could be a good thing. You know, a lot of people are tired of it, but I think more people are tired of it now because of other nerfs that, did stop that character while she was still at this state. So, I mean, I think it's more of like lowering skill cap on certain characters that people were able to elevate and completely exploit, right? Um, but I still think the fact that Sentinels and other and initiators and stuff were nerfed just made it harder to deal with that. So then it just made it that character's a lot more broken, sort of say it feels like. But I mean, now we're gonna see other agents, so it's gonna be exciting, I guess, for meta and comp stuff. So it's gonna be fun. But I don't think Neon really was the issue. So, but I'm glad for shotgun changes. So that's great.
Okay, now you mentioned the Sentinels and initiators, right? Also mentioned that, in patch 13.0, they were also going to slightly buff or change some things around them. Do you have any ideas that you might want to throw out that, could help uh, facilitate that better? Any buffs you think some, certain agents should get? Anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, like some of the Sentinels got nerfed a little too hard in comparison to others, where like Deadlock Net, for example, got the same treatment as like an initiator, right? Like I think that was a little too much, and I think they classified all the rechargeables together when it could have been a little bit different, I feel like. Um, but I think any kind of buff when it comes to timing between initiators and sentinels is only going to make the game better, and the meta is going to be a lot healthier. I feel like Paris had I feel like the best meta overall. We saw double senti, we saw double initiator, we saw double duelist, and then like you have the like trinity of like, oh, this stops this, but this also beats this, and it's just think the game was in a lot healthier state at the time. So I hope that it somewhat comes back to that so that we can have the creativity again of being able to do things like that, because that's where it's fun. I come from Rainbow Six, so being able to change agents and counter things like that, I feel like is the most fun overall.
Incredible. Now, speaking of the meta, it, first Yoru was nerfed, now Neon is going to be nerfed. Now that the two most big duelists have been nerfed, what do you think is the new meta that's going to take shape?
I mean, depending on the region, right? Each region is going to be different, but you're probably going to see a lot more Jet. You're going to see a lot more. I mean, you see Phoenix now, which is pretty cool. Some maps you can still play Raze. I mean, any of the duelists right now are viable. So I think that's pretty cool.
Okay, now thank you, Jovi. I only have two more questions for you to close out. First of all,
That's fine.
next you're playing T1,
Mhm.
the analysts and also the casters, everyone was mentioning how they have dipped in form in recent days. So I want to know your expectations for that matchup against T1.
Um, I mean, I'm excited to be able to play against them because they did, beat us in groups, so we do get a little bit of a revenge match. But those players are all just incredible players. They have so much experience and accolades that at any moment they can just show up. So I think whoever shows up tomorrow is gonna be the winner, is really what it comes down to.
All right, thank you so much. Now, final question. Stage two, Riot announced that they were changing the format. Tier two teams are going to be coming into the playoffs. So I just want to know your thoughts about this new, format change, and also, are there any tier two teams that you have your eyes on currently?
I think it's pretty cool that they're gonna give tier two more exposure to be able to do, qualify for the biggest, events and stuff like that. So I think that's really awesome. Does make it a little bit harder for, I would say, for franchise teams, because tier two is a completely different play style than it is in franchise. So definitely it's gonna put a lot of people on their toes. Um, but yeah, some of the tier two teams, like you see like either Boom or Nouse, right? Like those teams are good. And Motive was even a very good team that we saw together recently. Like teams like that are just hungry, that are dominant, are gonna give some teams a run for their money in this tournament. So I'm excited to see how that pans out.
All right, Jovi, that was all of my questions. Thank you so much for taking the time to agree to this interview. Uh, and I hope you have a next one. I hope you have a good one next game. Also, to close out, R6 major is coming up. I just want to know which team you're going to be supporting.
Ooh, I don't know. I mean, I saw that Wolves wasn't getting the visas, which is kind of rough. So I don't know. G2 looked kind of nice. M80 is obviously a favorite, right? Like there's a lot of like good teams out there. So it's been a little while since I've watched. But I don't know. Every time I tune in, there's always something different. It's actually pretty cool. So yeah. But one of my favorite players, which is also one of my old teammates, which is Hot and Cold. I think I'm always rooting for him. So
All right, that's great. Thank you so much, Jovi.
my pleasure. Thank you for having